And now introduce us to the navigating domain, please.
The navigating domain is all about how we orient to the social group. It's very often called the social instincts or the social subtypes by some people. But again, it's a cluster of instinctive behaviors that help us navigate the social domain, okay? To help us kind of work our way through it and to understand what it is that we encounter as we work our way through this domain. One of the big things to understand is that about this domain is that it's a focus on group dynamics in service of security. As humans, we're social species. We need to relate to other people in order to survive. We need to know who we can trust and who we can depend on so that we can protect ourselves and make sure that we're taken care of. So what is happening in the navigating domain is that it's a group of instincts that make us more attuned to understanding group mores. It makes us more attuned to watching and observing group dynamics so that we know how we should act in a group that we're in, so that we know where we fit into the group, so that we know what our status is, what our place in the hierarchy is. Okay? So the navigating domain is a group of instincts that helps us understand where we fit in and what our role or our identity is. Another thing that's critically important to understand is that it's really rooted in trust and reciprocity. Okay? Again, when we depend on each other as members of a group, we have to be able to trust each other. We have to know who I can share resources with when I have extra resources, with the expectation that they'll share resources with me when I need them. Okay? So the gossip and the trading of information that we often see in people of the navigating domain is a way of keeping track of that. It's a way of keeping track of who we can trust. It's also a way of enforcing group mores, right? If I know that people are going to talk about my behavior and I know that there are going to be repercussions for my behavior, it will keep me in line. It'll keep me a productive and appropriate behaving member of the group. Okay? So what you see is a lot of focus on information and understanding the group dynamics in people of this domain. As with the preserving domain, there are contradictions that we see within this domain. Okay? Again, genes and behaviors have evolved at different times for different purposes, but still fall within this same domain. So an internal dissonance that we see in people of the navigating domain is a need for acceptance, a behavioral tendency to do things in ways that will get them accepted and embraced by other members of the group. So they're very conscious of how they present themselves. They're very conscious of what they share with other people, and they're always reaching out, right? They're at least creating opportunities should it become useful to reach out in which they can do that. At the same time, there's this tendency to hold back, right? This tendency to manage what information I let out about myself. So the internal dissonance of the navigating type is how much of myself should I show so that I'm accepted, but how much of myself should I hold back so that I'm not rejected by the group? Okay? Now this causes contradictory behaviors, and again, if the dissonance is something that people of this type struggle with, the contradiction or behaviors that they do that can be either confusing or either detrimental to other people. So what you see in the navigating type is a desire to connect and a tendency to connect, but at the same time, they're very often judging these same people that they're connecting with. So in their heads, they're evaluating, where does this person stand in comparison to me? What's this person's reputation? How much can I trust them? They're judging behaviors. Oh boy, can you believe that he said that or that she wore that? So there's this tendency to be critical in their minds. And sometimes that criticality or that judgmentalism slips out and other people feel it, right? At the same time that they're feeling this warm connection. So this contradiction can be very confusing to people, but it's really easy to understand if we understand that this is just a group of competing instinctual drives within the same individual.
How is this domain influenced by the different strategies?
As with the preserving domain, the instincts are going to express themselves differently based on the different strategies. So if we take a navigating 5, for example, they're going to have this combination of a desire to connect with people, but a strategy that relies on withdrawing and detaching. So you get a very contradictory character sometimes. They're warm and engaging some moments, but then withheld and withdrawn the next. With the navigating 7, who's striving to be excited, or perhaps a navigating 8, who's striving to be powerful, you're going to see a very different approach to the instinct domains. You're going to see a more active use of them. So a navigating 7 is going to be more outgoing, more seemingly extroverted, certainly than a navigating 5 or a navigating 1. Now, of course, they won't be as extroverted as the transmitting 7 seems to be, but they'll be engaging and warm and connecting to people very often. So the instinct can have a real influence on, or it can be very heavily influenced by the strategy. We always have to remember that people within an instinct domain share some things, but if their strategy is different, they can look very different.